Fair and Sozial.
Social work gets organized.
We are Anja
and Sofia, and this is your podcast about self-organizing
and resistance of social workers.
Ein guter Tag zum Demonstrieren.
Yeah, welcome everyone. I'm Anja and I warmly welcome you to our fifth episode. This time we are going international.
Yay! Hello everyone, it's Sofia. So yes, this episode will be a bit different from the ones before. So usually we are guiding through different categories, all about political self-organizing of social workers in Germany. But today
we are going international, so that's why this episode is also in English. And our format is a bit different from the episodes before. We have 4 really exciting and experienced activists from 2 international social work networks on board. First, 2 activists from SWAN, the Social Work Action Network, and then Sofia interviewed 2 activists from the IFSW, the International Federation of Social Workers. But first of all, we are coming to our typical icebreaker question. Icebreaker. For our icebreaker question, we thought that it's a very basic question today. The question is, what motivates us for an international episode? And Sophia, would you like to start?
Yeah, I can try, of course. So I guess we both are a bit excited to do this right now. It started with the idea basically to open up our perspective to an international level, especially because I moved abroad to Sarajevo a while ago, I think last year, like nearly 1 year ago. And I got in touch with some active social workers in this region here on the Balkans. And I recognized there are a lot of activities, especially NGOs, like non-governmental organizations who are doing social projects. And I think I started to focus mostly on social work in context of the war experience here in Sarajevo in the 90s, and also in context of the Balkan society and like special challenges and problems. So honestly, sometimes my impression is that when I introduce myself also as a social worker, people are a bit like, I don't know, they're confused that I call myself like this. And I guess they don't know about the profession and the studies and that it's possible to become a social worker. So on the other hand, I guess people share mostly good experience with social services here. They have a really big and important influence. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people work in the social field without this academic background and like this framing of being a social worker. So sadly, I couldn't find an active worker union for social workers till now, but I'm pretty sure there are organized social workers, but it's not that easy to find them, so I'm still searching. Anja, I guess in the last conversations we were often reflecting how different social work can look like, also depending on where we are right now or on where we're looking, and especially in terms of education, structures, and even its political rule.
Yeah, definitely. I think this was these were topics that we discussed a lot in our talks, and this was definitely one of the most motivation to produce this episode in English and also on an international level. For me personally, my international master program, Social Work as a Human Rights Profession at the Alice Salomon University in Berlin, gave me a lot of insights how different social work is organized or can be organized, also depending on different state systems. And a question I thought a lot about was, what is the common? And in some countries, it's very grassroots and activist-oriented, and in others, it's more institutional and I would say even apolitical sometimes. And then there is everything in between. And I realized that while we are often assumed that there are common values in social work like human rights, solidarity, social justice, so often the interpretation of these values varies a lot and is very dependent on the system and the context. And this we already discussed even in our first episode in context of the World Social Work Conference in Panama.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we both have in common that we felt that solidarity, networking, and sharing strategies across borders are crucial. So, especially in times of social and political crisis. So, yeah, that's where the idea for this episode came from. Let's explore what connects us, as well as where we differ, and when it comes to organizing social work beyond Germany.
Yeah, I'm very curious. And that is exactly what this episode is about. It's about networks, critical reflection, and of course, action. Spotlight. We introduce you to different initiatives.
Before we want to dive into our interviews and guests, let's take a quick look at how social work is actually organized in different countries.
But first of all, I also wanted to make or to point out that we are both not experts. So this is really more about our personal experiences and also impressions and conversation with others. So if you hear to this episode and have different knowledge, please contact us. We are very happy to be in contact with you and also to produce another episode with other experiences, other impressions, other knowledge, and we are always in a process, so process of learning. So please contact us and be also a bit gentle with us when it's not like the knowledge that you have, because we are not experts on this field. We are also both just social workers. And what is really important, we are both social workers from Germany. We are both studied in Germany. So our whole context is about social work in Germany, and that is what we are coming from. And yeah, especially in this context, I think it's very important to point it out. So yeah, social work is really so differently organized in each country. In Germany, social work is not a protected profession. That means that you don't legally need to register you anywhere or join a professional body to call yourself a social worker. It's not protected. And although there are organizations like the DBSH or the DGSA, for academic social work, the membership is always voluntary. So there's no central mandatory registration process like in some other countries.
Yeah, thanks, Anja. Honestly, I was not that sure about that point, about the registration. So for me, that's quite interesting. I guess here in Bosnia, it should be quite the same. But one thing stands out for me in general, and I thought maybe I could share for a second. So I think in Bosnia, social jobs and the financial resources highly depending on foreign funding. That's something really special or unique here. So they're depending on, for example, the European Union or the United States. And this has positive and negative sides. So, on one side, it creates jobs with stable conditions. But on the other side, there's a lot of uncertainty, like such as temporary contracts, and people are not sure how long they will get a funding for the project. So, yeah, I think that's a bigger deal here. And yeah, maybe Anja, I would like to ask you. I guess you are more informed about that as me. But do you know in which country social work is already a protected title, or where it's like quite different to Germany?
Yeah, as far as I know, it is the case, for example, in the UK. Their social work should be a protected title, so you can't work as a social worker without being registered. Right now, that is through the organization Social Work England. But it's just as far as I know. Again, please contact us if you have other information. and I would say, from my perspective from Germany, I would say that in terms of political organizing, the UK has a bit more of a political tradition. For example, also groups like the SWAN network are way more visible. Like in Germany, there's not existing any group of SWAN even. So I would definitely say that there is a more political tradition there. But yeah, we would be also very curious to hear direct voices and experiences here. And instead, in Germany, those kind of radical voices definitely exist. That's also the topic of our podcast, but a way more fragmented, and often, yeah, they don't have this kind of public or political visibility or presence. That's my impression.
Yeah, I guess that's probably a perfect bridge to learn more about the SWAN network. Anja, I'm really happy that you had some nice contact already to some activists. And yeah.
Yeah, true. This is a perfect bridge. So SWAN, the Social Work Action Network, is a radical campaigning organization and network of social workers and social care practitioners, students, service users, and academics. And SWAN organizes different conferences, campaigns, and support radical social work across Europe and beyond. They challenge austerity, racism, and social justice. At this point, I really wanted to point out a huge thank you to DAFFFKE, who gave me the contact to SWAN Greece. And now two activists will give us an overview about their activities of SWAN Greece.
Hello, my name is Eirini.
And my name is Myrsini.
And we are members of the Greek SWAN. And today we will give you an idea of what the Greek SWAN is. We are based in Athens. And to introduce myself, I am a social worker. I'm working in the refugee field and especially with unaccompanied minors, girls.
Hello. So I'm still quite new in the field. I haven't been working a lot, but I've studied social work at university and I've done 2 internships. So one was in a special education school. I was working with children with disabilities, and the other one was in a non-governmental organization who supported people living with cancer. So in the upcoming September, I hope to work again in a school as a social worker. So, what is SWAN? Social Work Action Network. From my point of view, SWAN is a network for social workers who want to think critically. I think it's for people who don't see service users just as simple cases, but as human beings who experience oppression, different kinds of oppression in complex ways, depending on lots of things like their class, their gender, their race. And it's also for people who want to understand the bigger picture, like the deeper causes, the roots behind the problems that we see every day in our lives and in social work, which I personally think are linked to systemic and neoliberal injustices.
The Greek SWAN is a self-organized initiative. We have specific members. We hold meetings twice a month in which we have a specific agenda. As members of SWAN, we have a common approach, which is radical social work. And also our members can be social workers who are working currently in the field, social workers who are in the academic field, and also social workers who are not active in the field at the moment. Our main actions that we have done so far as SWAN are mostly related to the refugee field, child protection, mental health and substance abuse. We have organized activities like events, like open discussions, where we try to invite professionals with experience in the field to share their thoughts, but also service users to share their experiences and give their point of view. Still, as a SWAN, we try to have an active presence in the anti-racist festival that takes place every year during summer, and also we try to participate as much as we can in different kind of demonstrations that are happening mainly in Athens. And finally, we have organized some parties aiming to support financially some members of the Greek SWAN.
So because we're talking about actions right now, that's exactly what I like about SWAN, that it doesn't only focus on service work in the field, it's also a space for action, for literal action. It's about connecting with people, movements, and standing together against the injustices we see around us. And maybe it's about being open to self-reflection, to question ourselves and our own role in the system instead of just going with the flow. So my motivation for taking part in the Greek SWAN, I first heard about the network through a course I took at university with my professor, Dora Teloni. So one of my classmates was already participating and was involved in the network, and she introduced it to me. So what really pulled me in was the opportunity to see things from a different perspective, from a different point of view. Because during my studies, when I was an undergraduate at university, I wasn't really encouraged by my professors to think critically, to challenge the rules, the status quo of social work. So everything was very by the book and structured. So I honestly didn't even know there was another way of thinking until I got to know the Greek SWAN. So the truth for me is that the world we're living in today is full of complex challenges, especially in social work, in the social work field, and we need new tools to understand and respond to them. So that's my motivation for taking part in the Greek SWAN. That's why I want to grow as a professional who works in a radical and meaningful way, especially with children and families in schools. And that's the opportunity that SWAN gave me, to think more critically.
And from my point of view, and to add something to what Myrsini said, is that sometimes even if you have the knowledge, even if you have the information of how to work radically in social work, it's not that easy to put that in practice. And because of our participation in the Greek SWAN, we share exactly this approach, and we encourage ourselves to, we exchange information of how we can work radically, and this can be easily then applied to our day-to-day social work practice. But of course, we have faced some challenges. For example, something that we see as a challenge, and we have discussed it a lot during our meetings, is our regular participation. It's not that easy for our members to be present to all of our meetings and our activities, and this is something that may relate to working overload that a lot of our members have expressed, and it may be also connected with neoliberal system, which is getting more and more popular in the field of social work here in Greece. Also, something that has challenged us is our effort to have a good relationship and cooperation with the official Union of Social Workers here in Greece, but at the same time to stay committed to our radical approach. And lastly, one big problem is that we still don't have a decent budget as a Greek SWAN, so we cannot have the events that we would like to have. And this is one of our future steps that we are planning. We are planning to grow our budget, and also we are trying to get more involved with and to connect with other radical communities outside of social work, so we can create a bigger network and to have a bigger impact in the Greek society.
So for the closing, I would like to share with the audience that I think that an alternative approach to social work is possible, even in a country like Greece, where we're known for serious systemic problems and state oppression. It is possible. I want to convey that radical social work is possible, but it cannot be done alone. I believe that the professionals must connect with collectives, that they definitely have to work with the community and engage with the activist movement in order to bring a more meaningful change on a macro level, on a social work macro level, and on a macro level in general. So I would like to thank you for the opportunity you gave us to participate in your podcast.
We are waiting to meet you maybe in person. the German and the Greek SWAN to meet and to exchange thoughts, ideas
about the future.
And yeah, it was Eirini
And Myrsini.
And this was our podcast.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Honestly, I didn't know anything about SWAN before Anja told me, so that was really interesting.
Yeah, and this is exactly why it is so important that you're in our podcast episode, especially because your radical approaches are so enormously important for social work, especially in our current times, and also in particular for Germany, because there is currently no SWAN group existing here, at least I know. We can only hope that this will change soon. But regardless, we are also looking forward to meeting you, probably also in the next episode in our podcast. Yeah, at the very end, I can just say thank you so much again for your time and capacities, and see you soon.
Yeah, and now we're talking about the International Federation of Social Workers, IFSW, and I'm really happy that we had the occasion to talk to two German activists who are also active on an international level. So yeah, it's a more formal body, and it acts as the global voice for the profession with official representation at the UN. Yeah, and in Germany, the federation is strongly connected with the German Association of Social Work, like DBSH. I interviewed Nadja and Theresa about their activities on the international level. I'm really happy to interview you today. Yeah, I would say you're allowed to introduce yourself and share a bit about you and your work.
Hello, I'm happy to be here today. My name is Nadja Khan. I'm a social worker from Germany. I live in Munich. I have been very active in the German Association of Social Work for around 10 years now, even more. And yeah, at the moment, I'm mostly working for the thematic group of international work that we kind of just founded. And I'm happy to be here.
My name's Theresa Hoffman. I'm also a social worker. I'm based in Heidelberg. And like Nadja, I'm part of the thematic group within the association. And I'm not a member as long as Nadja is, but since I'm a member, we're working together on like international cooperation and the international work that's done by the association. And I really enjoy doing that with her. Very glad to be here today.
What is this organization like about? What are the main activities? I think a lot of people will maybe wonder about it.
As you already said, Sophia, IFSW stands for International Federation of Social Workers. And yeah, it is a global organization that represents professional social workers, promotes best practices, human rights, and social justice worldwide. And IFSW has a special structure. IFSW is structured as a federation of national member organizations. So there are no individual members, but the members are organizations. And the organizations are the associations of social work worldwide. So as DBSH, we are a member of IFSW. And there are some deeper structures, like there is a general meeting, an executive committee. And what's also interesting is that IFSW is structured in regions. And on the global level and on the European level, there are commissions and working groups concerning different topics.
What's probably the best or the one main activity of IFSW is like representing social works and social workers' voices on a global level, like Nadja described, and then on the different regional levels in like different regional bodies as well as national bodies. So the way it works is that the DBSH is a member organization of IFSW. So they registered with them and you have to agree to like the ethical conditions or the ethical set of standards they're setting out. Technically, you're then able to participate in the commissions and as well as in the meetings. And usually there's like one or two people representing their association within like the general meetings, and they happen on a global level every 2 years. And every other year that the global meeting is not happening, they happen on the regional level. So for example, last year it was a global meeting in Panama, And the year before, it was the regional meeting in Prague. And this year then is again a regional meeting in Norway, which Nadja is probably going to attend as well for the DBHS.
Yeah, I think the first time I really noticed IFSW was when I studied social work and when we had in our lessons, the international definition of social work. I was quite impressed that in the definition, the indigenous knowledge was named.
First connecting points also was during studies. I also remember that like in an ethics class, we talked about the ethical standards that were published by IFSW. But other than that, I literally had no clue whatsoever. And then I actually worked for the DBHS during my master's program. And then obviously got connected to different aspects of the association. And one of them also was the international work. And that's how I got in touch with it.
What do you think are the reasons that it's more complicated or complex to get the structures?
I think it's the way the organization is built. I think it's not familiar to us in Germany here. I think it's built on like a British system of like voting and stuff. And then it's very structured in a way, but also kind of chaotic in a way. You obviously have loads of different people with loads of different opinions from loads of different contexts. And then it's also people who are doing this work for years and years, who are like really familiar with each other and with the structures and with structures of, international organizations. So it's also just hard to kind of slide in as a new person and stay as a new person and not be overwhelmed.
Why you think, as a social worker who never heard about the federation, why could it be relevant or important to get in touch or to be interested for IFSW?
It is the political platform for social workers worldwide. One dimension is really this getting in contact and getting in touch with other social workers and, for example, other association of social workers. IFSW is also working with or has seats, like in the UN, in Singo, in very big, political institutions, and is really fighting to get the voice of social work also in this political dimensions worldwide and also on a European level.
It's really a lot about the representation. And I think if you're into social work on a political scale and like kind of lobbying and networking, IFSW is like the perfect platform to get in touch with people and bring and be active on that political stage.
You meet people who also have this mindset of being political and doing a lot of voluntarily work next to their regular jobs, to really bring social work forward.
Is there any other opportunity or possibility to do something, like to participate in activities?
So I guess the easiest way to become an active participant is kind of through your association, because technically your association is the body that gets all the information and gets all of the data sent out. And to become like a representative or get like a commissioner of some sort, then obviously as a participant, they do lots of webinars, they do different like seminars. They sometimes have like working groups on different topics or research you can also participate in. That's usually spread through their website, so that's very easy to access. But for example, Nadja and I are part of a working group that was very recently only established, only last autumn, that focuses on new social workers, so people either in their studies or within their first 5 years of work, if I'm not being mistaken. And it's about growing participation within IFSW also by a newer generation of professionals.
We are also trying in DBSH to make this easier, that there are not some sort of gates that are closed. On the one level, for some activities, you really need a lot of knowledge, kind of, when you start to work like in Singo or in the UN. You have to be elected for this work. Working groups are easier to get to. And I see it honestly as our job as DBSH to bring the information to the members and also to the social workers of Germany how to participate. Because on the European level, there is, for example, one group that is really doing work to climate change, like social work and climate change, and they are searching for people.
Would you say that social workers share, like globally, on a global level, same challenges and issues? How much do we have in common worldwide?
There definitely are challenges we all share. Like, we're not enough people in social work. I think that's a very commonly shared experience that we all kind of face, and that we're just not enough social workers to tackle the problems we're facing within our countries. And that also comes with issues of funding, of oppressive governments to right-wing governments, which we experience also, I think, kind of through the board, really. But I think it's also the systematic struggles that we're facing that are very similar, and also the way, civic spaces are shrinking, and that's also affecting social work. And then obviously there are national problems or regional problems that might not overlap.
I think what's also kind of in common is the acknowledgement of social work, like in a legal way. Of course, it's different, but in many countries, social work is not acknowledged on a legal way, like as a profession. So there are different approaches to social work. So not all social workers worldwide have gone the way that we have been going here in like Germany or Austria. Like we have studied and then we get our acknowledgement. I think it's interesting because social workers worldwide have a lot in common, Theresa said, but we also have this big differences, because some countries face terrible wars, face terrible situations. We have countries where social workers have to hide their work, or where social workers are totally controlled by the state. And we have social workers that, get arrested when they do their work, actually. We had one social worker in the conference, like in Panama, who said the travel to Panama was very, very hard and he's not sure if he can go back to the country. So we have this dimensions as well. That is sometimes not easy for IFSW. Who is a social worker? And what are the regulations about it? For example, social work is mainly controlled by the state. So then we are completely in the ethical questions again.
So we were wondering which topics are actually discussed the most, maybe also in DBSH international context and also in IFSW.
Topics are kind of flowing into each other. Also, usually IFSW, they kind of set a theme for every year, which usually also is this theme of World Social Work Day. And this year's topic is strengthening intergenerational solidarity for enduring well-being. So there was a kind of a focus on intergenerational work. How can we build societies that are, sustainable for every generation? Obviously, topics that are discussed is just current world happenings. So there's always discussion and talk about the very present wars the world's currently facing. May that be, what's happening in Palestine, may that be what's happening in Ukraine. We do have members in these countries. IFSW is looking at what's happening in Hungary, what's happening in Georgia, to the civic spaces. But there's also, I feel, a lot of positivity that they're trying to uplift. Is like what's happening in the different regions, what is done, what are the opportunities social workers can take. We're also just trying to see what can be resources for social workers, also in such circumstances. Our work is so much focused on, opening resources to the people we're working with, or being a resource to the people we're working with. But it's also always important to keep in mind that we as professionals, we're also in need of resources. Who can kind of do it better than we do it for ourselves, right? Because we kind of know what we're needing.
The worldwide politics and IFSW are kind of mirroring each other, because they belong together. In general, IFSW concentrates on questions of ethics of social work, on education, on indigenous knowledge, migration and human rights. And also the whole social work theme is about money. And we really want to find a way to make it as easy as possible to join. And we would really like to find other people who are going to build this with us. Maybe we can put our email address in the show notes or something of the podcast where people can reach us. I think I want to add that, as I already mentioned, we're really trying in our German association at the moment, DBSH, to really build a group of people who want to get involved in international social work and who are interested in building something here. We are still in the kind of startup phase. We haven't figured out everything that we want to do in this thematic group, but we really want to find people who want to build this with us. Of course, here in Germany, that it's easier, to get in this connection. We have a lot of challenges, from communication, as I said, and we want to make it easier to find ways to get abroad. And we also want to, make it easier to join conferences, because we have to say it is part of privilege and it is part of money at the end of the day.
Being internationally active or being connected to social workers on a global scale, like Nadja said, is actually so enriching and it's like really empowering. When we talk about IFSW, it sounds like very organizational and very structural, and to many people, something being very political might also be a bit like frightening or boring. You're just talking with other social workers that are from different countries, different contexts, and there's just so much knowledge to learn. There's so much experiences to share. And every time we go to a conference, I think we need like a 3-week holiday afterwards, but it's also just so great to get in contact with people, to build networks, and to just, sit and chat with them. And I think that's such a big, big benefit of like IFSW or probably any global organization that is focusing on networking. It's so great. We met so many really nice people, and it's just so empowering to hear people talk about what's going on within their social work kind of culture or landscape. I think that's probably my obviously favorite thing about doing it, because otherwise I probably wouldn't be doing it. Also brings something to me as a social worker, but obviously also as a person.
Thank you, Nadja and Theresa, for your time and capacity. It was really interesting to talk about your activities.
Yeah, and now that we heard like these two perspectives from two different organizations, I wanted to say that for me it's very interesting that even these two players are really so different, with very different approaches. One from more below, grassroots and radical and political, and the other more official, structured and globally. But both, with their different approaches, are trying to strengthen social work and push them for change. And I think this is also, to come back to our question from the beginning, the common. And that was one of my thoughts. I'm not sure if you have other thoughts there, Sophia.
Yeah, I just can agree to that point. For me, I saw some kind of spectrum, or like Spektrum in German. Yeah, it's interesting how different organizations can look like, and I'm really impressed, especially from really like grassroots and self-organized initiatives. Yeah, and I also look forward to get in touch with more international organizations. So if there's someone in our audience right now listening and you have contact to another international initiative, please let us know. You're open to share some input, or just contact us.
Yeah, definitely. What's next?
We highlight upcoming events. We collected 2 interesting events for you, also like a conference. And Anja, you researched something on the Balkans, right?
Yeah, true. There's a really interesting conference, I think. It's from the School of Social Work Theory and Practice and takes place in Dubrovnik in the beginning of September, from the 8th until the 13th. And the focus is radical activist-oriented social work. For example, radical social work in the face of right-wing discourses and authoritarian politics.
Yeah, and furthermore, we found a really interesting conference organized from the International Federation of Social Work. It's like a Europe regional conference, and it will take place in Norway, in Oslo, in a Congress Center from the 6th till the 8th October this year. And yeah, the main topics will be green social work, climate change, the sustainability goals from UN, and indigenous peoples' perspectives. The title is Bridging Communities, Building Sustainable Futures. Check the links in our show notes. There you will find more updates and follow us on Instagram.
Spoken Notes.
Impressions from our audience.
Yeah, I'm really happy to introduce you a social worker from Sarajevo, Adna, who prepared a small input.
Hello, my name is Adna. I'm 24 years old and I'm from Sarajevo, Bosnia and Herzegovina. When it comes to my educational part, I finished social work, the bachelor on Faculty of Political Sciences in Sarajevo, and now I'm finishing my master degree also on Faculty of Political Sciences, but just different department, and current department is International Relations and Diplomacy. When it comes to my work at social work, I'm working over 5 years with young people and children through different programs and projects. Usually all of them are the part of NGOs in Sarajevo, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and also there are different level of working. Some of them are national, regional, and also international. Beside my work in social work, I'm also taking part in activism, which is connected to human rights and also some maybe political or national topics in Sarajevo, but also which are connected to Bosnia and Herzegovina or some other countries, which is now situation with Palestine, where I'm actively volunteer and doing activism which are connected to improving situation in Palestine, rising people's opinion, making protests, collecting money and humanitarian aid, and so on and so on. When it comes to the special circumstances in Sarajevo and usually in Bosnia and Herzegovina, we have to mention that we are post-war country where we still have some difficulties when it comes to the ethnical conflicts inside of Bosnia and Herzegovina. So those are topics which are a little bit special when it comes to the working in the field of social work. We have a lot of PTSD patients and users, and also users which have post-generational PTSD. What is also maybe a special circumstance in Bosnia and Herzegovina and usually on Balkans is prejudice about improving mental health through therapy, through psychologists, and so on and so on. So people somewhere they didn't completely let's say transform their opinion to good sides of therapy, psychological approach, but it is improving how the years are going. In every country we have some political situations and politicians who are affecting, of course, all citizens, but in Bosnia and Herzegovina it's a little bit different because with help also of PTSD, the people are very easily to controlled by politicians with fear and presenting situations which are not safe for our citizens. So we have situations and field of working where the people and young people are somehow always in some fear of the war. And what is also common that users of social care are in big number the people who have been the part of army in the war, or their children, or the people who are affected mentally. There are usually problem-solving methods, feminist methods also, because I am feminist and I'm trying somehow to impact in my society with this opinion, usually balancing with religion. So we can have like one approach which is taking and feminism and religion in one way and explaining to people that it's It's the same plan from both sides, just the people has to understand the system of patriarchy, which is still common in Bosnia and Herzegovina and in region. My work is also reflected in my activism, which is a little bit different from everything that I mentioned till now. And it's connected to speaking with people about different topics, usually young people, where I am opening some topics which are very interesting for me, interesting for them, sometimes difficult, but where we can somehow exchange thoughts.
Thank you so much, Adna.
Specials.
Our recommendations for you. Yeah, before we finally wrap up, we want to recommend 2 things. First of all, we have this interactive map called Social Work at Risk database. It collects cases where social workers are threatened, censored, or attacked for doing their job.
Yeah, it's a really eye-opening and unfortunately really important map and a call to action as well. And you'll find the website in our show notes, swriskdata.org. Have a look.
Also, we prepared a Spotify playlist of international social work podcasts we would like to recommend you. You will find interviews, theory deep dives, and activist reflections from all around the world. So yeah, this list will also be in our show notes or on Instagram.
Yeah, and that's it for today from our international edition of Fair and Sozial. We are very curious to hear your feedback about this bit special episode from our German podcast.
Yeah, and we hope to give you a small overview into the variety and struggles of social work beyond Germany. Thanks to all the guests and people who participated in our episode. And yeah, I guess we're looking forward to our next episode. Let it be in English or German, let's see.
Yeah, and at the end, we can just say stay organized, stay critical and radical, and of course, connected.
Yeah, and see or hear you next time. Feel free to contact us if you're interested to participate in our next episode or to introduce another initiative or organization or a personal topic. And yeah, you can find more information on Instagram. Also, we are really thankful about every donation so we can afford our project in the future.
Bye bye. See you.
Bye bye.